Hello, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Cassie Johnson, and I am going over the ways that I'm working towards financial independence in my own life and how I can help you do the same. So I have been selling apparel on Etsy for just under 2 years now, after my husband and I both lost our jobs in March of 2020. I've now sold over $500,000 on Etsy, and now I'm going to go over how I was able to do that without ever actually making any physical products myself or even shipping them out myself. So let's get into it. So after we lost our jobs, I went to YouTube looking for ways to make money online, and I found this really unique opportunity to sell items on Etsy with something called print on demand. So print on demand is when you partner with a print company like Printify. You post designs on their website and sync it over to Etsy, and then when someone actually buys your item, Printify automatically gets the order, they print it, ship it to your customer, and even update the tracking number on Etsy for you. So all you have to do is make beautiful designs and handle the customer service, and they handle everything else for you. This way I wouldn't have to come up with my own inventory, buy hundreds of shirts, wouldn't have to buy a printer. It was something I could start right away. So literally the next day, I opened up my Etsy shop, I connected it to my print company, and I started listing items for sale. And actually that same day, believe it or not, I got my very first sale. It was from my mother-in-law. So she bought a mug from me, and that was really fun and really exciting. But then because she bought that mug, I think it boosted it in the Etsy algorithm, because they like to see when an item gets sales, they start promoting it more. And so the sooner you can get a sale, the better, because then I got my first sale from a stranger the very same day. We were really excited until later that exact same day, quite the roller coaster. Like a lot of new shops, my Etsy store actually got deactivated. So this is something that Etsy does to try and protect themselves from bots and fake accounts. So if this has happened to you, or if it hasn't yet and it does, don't be alarmed if all of a sudden your account is deactivated, because you can actually email Etsy and get your account back. But I didn't know that at the time. I emailed Etsy, I tried calling Etsy, but they make it really hard to get a hold of them. And this was March of 2020, so I don't think there was a lot of people actually working. And so I took about a week and couldn't hear back from anyone. And so I went ahead and gave up on Etsy. I wanted to still do print on demand. So I started looking for other ways to sell print on demand. And I found a video telling you how to open up your own website and then advertise that website on Facebook to then get sales. And so that's exactly what I did. I opened up my own Shopify store, but starting out, not knowing what I was doing, I made about 50 designs. I spent about a month listing them and tried to learn Facebook ads. I tried learning Pinterest ads, and I spent, I think, $100 on advertising and didn't get any sales. I did share it on my Facebook, and then I got 5 or 6 sales from friends and family, but that was really about it. So my husband had this great idea to, believe it or not, complain to the Better Business Bureau. He had saw something on Reddit about someone doing this, and so I wouldn't recommend going to this as your first option, but it did end up working for me. So I went on the Better Business Bureau, and within a week, no response back, but all of a sudden I was able to sign into my Etsy store. This was about the first week in May. And by this time I had about 50 different designs that I had made for my Shopify store. So I spent the time to bring all those listings over to Etsy. So I had my first design start to take off a little bit there in May. It was a Father's Day design. Most of my other designs didn't really get any sales, but I ended up selling 41 shirts in the month of May. So that really comes to about $1,000 in total revenue for the month. That translates to about $312 in actual profit, just so you know kind of what comes out of that, since I have to actually pay for the shirts from Printify and there's Etsy fees, and that was what I got to keep. But then I kind of got into a little bit of a panic, because I was working with a print company called Printful at that time. And because of everything going on in 2020, they were running really behind, about 3 weeks it took to get your shirts printed at that time. So if you start print on demand now, you are spoiled, let me tell you. So that's when I actually made the switch over to Printify, and their prices ended up being a little bit cheaper, and I've had a really good experience with their customer service and their quality. So then moving into June, we ended up getting a lot more listings. So, I got up to about 300 listings at this time. I was trying a lot of different niches. So I started selling shirts for teachers, which are really hot in the spring and the summer, a lot more Father's Day still, camping, and then I started getting into bachelorette shirts. When you get your first group sale where it's like 10 shirts, oh my goodness, that is so exciting. So in June, I ended up selling 67 items. So that's about $2,000 in total revenue, and I made $520 in actual profit. So in July, I started selling a lot more bachelorette shirts, a lot more dad shirts, camping shirts, and then started getting into like funny election shirts. So definitely shirts that are relevant to what's going on right now are always going to be good sellers. So in July, I sold 138 shirts. That is about $4,400 in revenue, and we actually made $1,500 in profit after all of the expenses. That can pay my mortgage every month. And so I started thinking, wow, this really could be something. But at that time, as of August 1st, I was going to go back to a full-time job, a new one. So that brings us to August. This beginning of the month, I had probably around 500 listings. I started, like I said, my new full-time job. So I was working 40 hours a week again at this time, but I made sure to stay up late and wake up early to still get a bunch of new listings out. And I think I got around 800 listings by the end of the month up for sale on Etsy, and it really paid off. So I did try a few different things this month. I had a Facebook group that I had started for my store, and I invited a bunch of my friends to it, and I did a couple free giveaways. So I ended up giving away 2 t-shirts that month. I did 2 giveaways. Those 2 people got their free shirts, and I ended up getting about 8 sales from strangers, from people sharing my shop. And then the other thing that I did was someone had recommended running Etsy ads on their shop. I tried it. I went all the way and tried $30 a day in advertising. I started advertising just the items that were already selling. So I think I was advertising 20 different items total. So I wasn't advertising things that had never sold. Really the big benefit when you're looking at just the actual ads and if they make sense or not, it's hard to tell because usually it feels like it comes pretty close to break even. You're not like spending $30 on ads and making $900. But it did help me get a lot more best sellers because the items that were already selling, I got them to sell even more, got more reviews, and I started to see, I felt like more organic traffic because of the ads that I was running. I sold $12,000 in sales, that was the revenue, and I spent $918 on ads, and so the profit for the month was $3,725, which was more than I was actually making at my new job that I just started that month. So that's when I really realized that this could be a full-time job. At that time I was selling a bunch of Halloween stuff and a bunch of funny political shirts as well. So in September, I started posting Christmas items. So I went really crazy and started listing as many Christmas sweaters and funny Christmas shirts as I could. You can really make a Christmas sweater or Christmas shirt with any niche that you're already in, and I definitely would recommend doing that. So that was my big focus in September. And then I remember one specific sweater that I'd been selling a bunch of in August for Halloween, all of a sudden wasn't selling as well. And so I did some research and I found another shop that did a very similar design to mine, but also did a few other different versions of it and posted it in every color you could think of. So they probably had 15 different listings for this one design style when I only had one. So I had one bestseller and they had like 5 bestsellers. And so that's when I learned when you have something that's working, add it to other colors, add it to other items, because you already know that people are looking for those words, you know people like that style, so you really want to capitalize on what's working. We sold 327 sales, which was about $10,000 in revenue and about $3,200 in total profit. So in October, I sold 442 sales. That was $13,000 in revenue and $2,700 in profit. I was still selling a lot of my same Halloween designs. So then comes November 2020, because at this time I know I had over 1,000 listings. I can't remember if I quite had 1,500 listings at this point or not. And so, a lot of my Christmas sweaters that I had listed back in September that had gotten a couple of sales throughout October really started to take off. Along with, I'd see new trends coming out and I'd make new sweatshirts and t-shirts for those new trends. And at this time, I think it was like November 23rd, and had about $22,000 in revenue for the month. And I was so excited. I was like, okay, this is really happening. Finally, I think I'm gonna do $30,000 this month. But then one day, my phone just started cha-chinging, and these sales every couple of minutes were just coming in. And I ended up getting over 600 sales in a 24-hour or about 48-hour period. And so I ended up reaching out to one of my customers, and I'm like, hey, how did you find my store? And thank you for your purchase. And she said that a woman from the show on Netflix, The Home Edit, had actually purchased one of my sweaters and shared it on her Instagram story. And then over the next couple of days, the last week of the month, I ended up selling another $15,000 in revenue. So for the total numbers of November, I ended up selling 2,012 shirts total. So that blew away every dream I could have had of how November would have gone. That ended up being $70,000 in total revenue. And then drum roll please, that is $23,713 in profit after all expenses. So obviously that is just the craziest thing that I ever could have imagined. And again, I'm working a full-time job at this point. So that's when I really knew that, if you really keep at it, this can be a wild, crazy ride and you can make a lot of money. That brings us to December of 2020. So I just wanted to go over these first, 8 months of selling, since I know that's where a lot of people's main questions are. How long did it take you to start getting daily sales? What were you selling? How many listings did you have? So I'm hoping that these first 8 months can really answer a lot of those beginning questions and give you a little preview into how my journey really started. So December, it was just a lot of selling the first 10 days of what was already selling in November. So really basically just Christmas items. And then after about the 10th, I put on a note on all my listings saying that these items are no longer guaranteed by Christmas. And so in the first about 10 days of the month, I made 672 sales, which is about $22,000 in revenue and $5,800 in profit. So another crazy, amazing month that I couldn't even believe that I was making this much money. There is one thing that I did try in December, and that was actually advertising on a Facebook group. I had someone reach out to me about one of the smaller niches that I had, that they had a Facebook group, and they said for $40 we would post your shop and whatever post you wanted to the top of the page, and it had I think 40,000 people in the group, and then we'll leave it there for 24 hours for your $40. And so I paid $40 and had this ad on this Facebook group, and I got a bunch of sales from it because it was for a really specific niche that there weren't really other Christmas items for. And so if you're in a niche that you could join some Facebook groups with, you can always check. Usually in the rules it tells you if you're able to just post. A lot of groups you can post once per week trying to sell things, but definitely a great way to get some extra traffic to your store, since that did help a little bit as well. So total for the year of 2020, I'd really, like I said, started in May and sold till December. So total in revenue, I sold $135,000 in t-shirts, and I made $41,000 in profit after all expenses. So really, what started as my side hustle turned into something, this is what I really wanted to do. So then obviously in the rest of 2021 is when I sold the rest of the $500,000 that I have now sold. So I'll probably make another video going through 2021, some of the niches that I sold in and how that went. But I hope this gave you a really good idea of how to get started and really what my roadmap was, so you can kind of learn from that. And I can't wait to see you in the next one.